Well, hello there, and welcome to another tank review. I'm Corny Swiss, and today we're looking at the Chieftain Mark III, the Rank 5 8.0 battle rating British medium tank. Now, as with all reviews, the various parts are going to be timestamped down below in the description, so feel free to check those out if you maybe want to skip ahead to a different part. But we're going to start with the garage portion now. So the Chieftain, if you recall what I said about the Centurion in a historical context, the idea of the Centurion was to make a very versatile platform that you could do a lot of different things on. You know, mobility, armor, a powerful gun, and then have that same platform be used for most things. Just make it a very one trick, like one stop shop for all the British Army's needs. The Chieftain is kind of the extension of that in a way. It looks a lot different, but I guess maybe a little bit the same. But there's some differences, and we'll talk about them now. Because the Chieftain is kind of revolutionary, may not be the right word, but there's a lot of design changes that we see in modern tanks that this is sort of the first time we really seeing him in War Thunder, I think. The first thing we'll talk about, the first thing that surprised me the most, because honestly I hadn't looked at the Chieftain prior to it being introduced into the game, is the lack of a gun mantlet. Gun mantlets are pretty useful, right? They basically act as extra armor on the turret face, and you can use them to good effect on when you're hull down. Chieftain doesn't have one. And the reason it doesn't have one, according to my research, is that they wanted to maximize gun depression. They wanted to get that 10 degrees of gun depression, and having the mantlet wouldn't let you do that on this heavily sloped turret. So they got rid of the mantlet and to allow the gun to traverse down that far. Also, something to note is the driver actually sits in a very sort of reclined position, and other tanks have done this, but the reason this is important is it allows for this heavy sloping on the front of the tank. It reduces the overall height of the tank because you don't need the driver's compartment. You don't have a driver sitting up in there. So it allows you to angle this front part of the tank very heavily, which means that you can get more out of less armor here, a more effective thickness due to the sloping. Also, you'll note that the whole front of the tank is just very angular. See the front of the turret, there's not really a flat spot on this turret, which is nice. Something else to note, it's got a 120 millimeter gun. That was one of the main things that kind of pushed development of the Chieftain is the Centurion had the 105, Centurion Mark 10 had the 105, and the British Army wanted the 120 millimeter gun off the Conqueror. Well, this gun's a lot better in War Thunder on the Chieftain than it is on the Conqueror. But they wanted the 120 millimeter gun, but the problem with this gun is that it's long and heavy. So they had to extend out the back of the turret, put a lot of weight back here, like ammo, fire extinguishers, storage, whatever, just to balance out the tank. But this is we're approaching pretty modern tanks here. I mean, this tank was introduced in the 60s, and it's technically still in service today. So, it's another one of these tanks that's still around, still kicking. Although I think the British Army uses these hulls as target practice now, but whatever. The Chieftain. It's another one of these main battle tanks, combining the usefulness of a medium tank with the power of a heavy tank. Pretty sweet. The Centurion, as we have it in the game, we'll start with the engine stuff. Mass 54.4 tons, 630 horsepower engine at 260. No, I can't speak English today. 2,625 RPM. Max speed 41 kilometers an hour. Maximum inclination 40 degrees. Visibility 88%. So you can kind of attribute the visibility reduction over its predecessors to the fact that this driver's seat really, because it shortened the overall hull height, allowing it to be a more stealthy machine, even though it's still kind of big. Certainly one of the biggest main battle tanks we have in the game. Looks a lot like a heavy tank. It just has that sort of heavy tank vibe to it. So, mobility, kind of what you expect. It's no Leopard 1. I think if you want to say T-54, Leopard 1, M60 in this tank, I would say this tank is tied. It's probably close to the bottom in mobility. It is just overall feels larger, and it can move. It's not bad. I don't think mobility is a strong suit on this tank, but I also don't think it's like horrible. I don't think it's weak. It's just not strong. You're always kind of looking for, oh, what do I do better than them? Well, this tank's mobility isn't as good as others. I mean, the Leopard's always going to, I feel like, dominate that category. It's just so agile. And with a 105 millimeter gun, it's a pretty potent tank. But Chieftain, 120 millimeter gun. That's pretty sweet, too. Okay, turret handling, 16.9 degrees per second turret rotation. That's fine. 10 degrees gun depression, 20 degrees elevation. That's pretty standard. Now, reload rate. With a decent crew, 9.5 seconds on a 120 millimeter gun. I think that's pretty tough. I think that's pretty good. Being able to fire a 120 millimeter gun that quickly is pretty sweet, right? But we'll talk more about the gun in a second, because we're going to talk about the armor now. Because at a tier where armor, in my opinion, means so little, well, no, T-54 still manage bounces and stuff. Basically, 8.0, I don't think armor means a whole lot. This tank's got some decent armor, and we'll talk about it here. So, you can see the armor profile is kind of weird. Let's start with the hull. Let's line it up so we get a good measurement. 86 millimeters here. Effective thanks to the 71 degree slope. 221 millimeters. 220 so millimeters of armor. It's pretty sweet. Now, a lot of guns can get through that, but it is sloped at 71 degrees. So you can get lucky there. You got the 70 millimeters of armor here, thanks to sloping up at its weakest, probably about 230 on both of these sides. Then you have this plate here, which is 110. You're never going to penetrate that. Then you have this, which is 127 down near the base of the turret. Thanks to the 66 degree sloping, it's well over 200 millimeters as well. Actually pushing 300. So the front upper glacis of this tank is at no point less than 230 millimeters straight on, thanks to sloping. The lower plate, 76.2 millimeters. It is angled at 45 degrees, but that only makes it 120 some odd degrees. That's kind of a problem. The people can penetrate that all day. The sloping is, if you had hardcore sloping like you do on the upper glacis, on the lower glacis, that would be pretty sweet. But that's just not how it is. The driver's got to put his feet somewhere. So, upper glacis, pretty sweat. It's sometimes surprises you. It gets the job done. The problem you have is that everyone shoots heat FS, and there's a lot of situations where you find yourself slightly tilted down or slightly tilted up, and I mean, like when you're slightly tilted up, this plate is a all-day Swiss cheese, When you're tilted down, this becomes a problem. When you're tilted down, this becomes a problem. We'll talk about turret now. Okay. So, the base of the turret, 250 millimeters. Very little angling, about 280. Okay, that's pretty standard. 215 on this side bit here. Thanks to the sloping, it's at no point under 300. 196 here, thanks to sloping, at no point under almost 400. There's a little spot here where it's 350, but who's going to hit that? Okay, the what would be the gun mantlet, but non-existent gun mantlet. 130 here. It's 263 millimeters, sloped at 60 degrees. This 150 really weirdly sloped. See, you can kind of see this is just weird. So is this. This whole front of the turret is pretty weird. It's difficult to describe. 250 millimeters, we already talked about that section. 125 right here. It is sloped pretty well. And at no point is it less than, let's say, 230 millimeters. Ooh, found a spot. Right there on this seam. That's where you got to hit this turret. It's still sloped really well. Basically what I'm getting at is the turret face of this tank is actually really, really tough. The sloping just makes it really weird. And I've found that when I'm engaging people in a strong hold-down position, I'm pretty safe. The only thing that gets The only damage I take is they knock out my gun. I've had a lot of success with the turret face of this tank. It just, I think part of it might be the spots where you can reliably penetrate are so small and spread out that it's difficult to hit them at any type of range. So this turret face I think is really good. It gets the job done. However, something to note, on top of the turret is 50 millimeters. So if you're angled down like this, I've had people penetrate the top of my turret. Kind of like you used to do on like an IS-3 or an IS-4. And also this gets thinner. When you're tilted down like this whole turret becomes a lot weaker. I've had situations where I was like this aiming up at somebody, and they just penetrated right through the front of my my turret face, which was sad. But I've also had times when I was looking at them face straight on, and they couldn't touch me because there's a rock here or something like that, and they just could not touch this. So, things to note. Side of the turret, 174. The angling is really all for the front, so these are all basically the thickness as advertised. Got this steel box here, 86. The side of the turret of this thing is not particularly strong. So, but ultimately, if someone's got the side of your turret, you got bigger problems. They can probably hit your hull or something like that. However, the side of this tank is kind of interesting because you do have all these the side skirt here, which is pretty useful. You do have 37 millimeters, 37 whole millimeters underneath those side skirts. This tank is not incredibly durable from the side. It doesn't work. These side skirts are sweet. They can help you with like some very extreme angling, like taking one hit for you, but no. Side armor is not very good. Rear armor is very bad. It's really all on the front, which is kind of the whole main battle tank idea. So that makes sense. The armor profile, in my opinion, is fine. It's good. It's good. But the problem is that a lot of people are firing heat FS and rounds with 400 millimeters of penetration. That's pretty rough. You need some serious armor. And I think the turret, the gun mantlet gets, or not the gun mantlet, sorry, I didn't have one. The turret face gets the job done. The upper glacis, the hull as a whole, I think, struggles at times. So, let us talk about the ammunition, shall we? So here we are on the modifications page. As you can see, I have not fully elite this tank. I'm working on it. I'm moving right along. Artillery support, that one's new. This wasn't here. It's not super new, but it now has artillery support. It didn't before. Okay. The ammunition. You only have two choices, which is nice. You basically unlock this tank, get parts, get fire extinguisher, and this tank is effectively combat ready. I always, at this tier, the gun performance is so important that I think you should beeline all these upgrades that do anything to increase your gun's accuracy or traverse speed or anything. That's very critical. Because the speed base is fine. It can get a lot better, but ultimately the gun performance is really what's going to make the difference. Okay, ammunition. You have two choices. You have an armor-piercing discarding sabot shell, 10 kilogram shell, 113.70. No, that was not correct numbers. 1,370 meters per second muzzle velocity. At 10 meters, it has 400 millimeters penetration. At 500 meters, it has 393, 1,500, 385, and 2,000, 379. This sabot shell has obscene penetration. The problem is there's situations where sabot shells are just not the best, right? There are countless times when just the sloping just makes it so a sabot shell is just very bad. I have had this sabot shell bounce a lot, not a lot, plenty of times off a Leopard 1's gun mantlet, just because the angle was just right and it was weird, which is sad because Leopard 1's should just die. Just hit it with a 10 kilogram shell. Flying that fast, I think it should just blow up. But that's not how it works. Alright, but we also have this Hess shell. Okay, 17 kilograms, 670 meters per second muzzle velocity. I hate the muzzle velocity. 670 is low. Not what I like. I like it close to 1,000. 1,000's pretty sweet. But it is a Hess shell. It does contain explosives, which is nice, especially when dealing with, let's say, a Leopard 1. Leopard 1s get feasted on by this shell. And if you hit them in the hull, the Sabot shell will do the job too. But this shell, 150 millimeters penetration at all ranges, which is sweet. And, honestly, I like this Hess shell. The problems inherent in the Sabot shell kind of go away with the Hess shell. Because when you think about it, what target has more than 150 millimeters of armor at 8.0 battle rating? Very few, if any. Now, there's some that do. But your main competition, let's say T-54s, Leopard 1s, really those two, this Hess shell can feast on them, right? I really like this Hess shell against the side of T-54s. I think it brings more punch into the equation than the Sabot. I love this shell against any part of a Leopard 1, just because I had bad luck with the Sabot shell trying to blow up Leopard 1, so I started using the Hess shell and they just started dying, which is sweet. That's the whole goal, right? You hit them with this shell and they die. It's a 17 kilogram shell too, so it's 7 kilograms heavier, 70% heavier. It's pretty sweet. All right, so in my opinion, I like this Hess shell a lot. The problem is the muzzle velocity, but I can live with that when the things that are killing me die to this. Right? The biggest tanks I've had that you deal with in this machine are Leopard 1s and T-54s. Well, both of them die to the Hess shell. So, I use the Sabot shell at long range, use this Hess shell at medium to short range. And not always true. The Sabot shell works at short range too, but if I usually keep... Okay, here's my full philosophy. I usually keep the Sabot shell loaded until I start engaging a target where the Hess shell I think is best. And the reason is just the raw penetration power. If I catch them unangled, or if I catch the hull of a Leopard 1, I'm going to send it clean through his ammo rack and probably blow him up. So that's why I like that. The gun. The gun is, I think, really what makes this tank tick. I really like this gun. I think it brings a lot of power. The Sabot shell can be disappointing at times when the angles just are not working in your favor. You're getting unlucky. But the muzzle velocity is really good. The reload rate's really good, so you usually can get shells on target pretty quick. The Hess shell I really like because the tank that, in my opinion, I think the Leopard 1 is the most well-suited to how 8.0 plays. Every tank can penetrate every other tank, so ditch the armor, get really fast, have a good rate of fire, and just pound people. And this tank has a shell that deals with Leopard very quickly, very efficiently, if you do it right. So, I like the Chieftain. It's pretty sweet. The gun is very sweet. The armor gets the job done. The turret front, I think, is really good. Mobility-wise, obviously from my modifications page, you can tell that I don't have transmission yet. But, I have the engine, have the filters. Mobility is fine. It's great. It's fine. It's fine. That's the best thing you can say about it. It's good. It's fine. Whatever. The gun, though, is what I think you play this tank for. Get in a hull down position and just whack people in the side of the face with Hess shells and Sabot shells, and that's pretty sweet. So, without further ado, let's jump into the replay, shall we? So here we are in a realistic battle in the Chieftain. Now, you will note I am carrying a lot more Sabot shell than I actually do nowadays, but this was during the experiment phase. There are an awful lot of Chieftains on my team. This is a commonality. There are lots of Chieftains running around. It's a good tank, so kind of makes sense. But this is on Mazdak. This is just a battle mode. And I spawned on the western side. And my initial plan was to come over here, kind of go hull down, and try and attack the other ridge. But I start seeing shots going out, and I get a little scared, and I don't know what I'm doing with my life, so I kind of just go this way. That's something, because there was that whole long time where I really wasn't playing War Thunder very much. You have no idea how difficult War Thunder becomes if you don't play for a while. At least for me. I'm the type of guy where if I don't do something for a while, I get bad at it. You know, I need to practice. Practice is very important for me with anything. Now we have one brave soul who is pushing across this field. He's machine gunning at somebody. Oh, that guy just died. Sweet. But this position is borderline useless. So I need to move forward and take my gun to the enemy. You'll notice, and I feel okay doing this primarily because my teammates have pushed up alongside me to the left, out to the west. So my flank should be relatively secure. I should be able to move forward and help this chieftain. Because he's being very bold. And when your teammates are being very bold, you either let them die or try and save them. Or they save you because you need the saving. But we're just making all types of moves here. I will reiterate, though, and I'm sure I've said it before, I really don't like the 8.0 battle rating. I think there's just an awful lot of just getting blasted from a different part of the map. I think the guns are so powerful, the ammunition's so powerful, the tanks just don't have effective armor, that mistakes are punished so hard. And mistakes are already very punished in War Thunder. You know, more so than in like World of Tanks, Armored Warfare, or whatever. The only mistake you get punished for in the same amount, I guess, as War Thunder and Armored Warfare and World Tanks, is if you sit in the same spot for too long. Already will bring the fist of God down upon you. But that's completely avoidable and totally your fault. There are plenty of things in War Thunder that you can do that were not your fault. Also, the day I was playing this, and actually for a while, I felt like there were just ghost shells. You'll notice, like, okay, that guy, there was something weird right there. No way that tank could move that fast. I think he must have been, like, lagging or packet loss or something. Something weird happened there. Some type of networking thing. But he's getting hammered there. You'll notice I've switched to Hesh, and part of the reason I switched to Hesh was I wanted to loop a shell over the side there. But that is a good old IS-3. Hesh shell into the side, got 2 of his crew. The IS-3 is very ooh, he blew up. That must have been awkward. Here, this looks like a T-54. Hesh shell into the side, got 2 of his crew, damaged a bunch of components. I really like the Hesh shell just blasting things. Give him again. Hit his ammo. I feel like that should have blown him up, but it didn't. At some point, you just got to keep shooting. There he goes. He's destroyed. Here's this guy. Come over the top. Put a shell into him. Blow him up. The best way to do things. He was probably toast anyway. Oop. There we go. Now time to recover. There's a guy over here, but I really can't see him. Oh, there's this fire. Whatever. So, something else that happens in the 8.0 battle rating a lot is when you get an advantage, your team can push it very effectively because all the tanks have very quick firing guns and are generally pretty quick. This is a good example of the Chieftain mobility, I think. We're just cruising along here. I think this is before I unlock the engine, but we're just cruising along, pushing up to their spawn, and we're just going to have a good time because we've utterly dominated this part of the map. The southern part, debatable how we're doing. But we've completely hemmed in this top part of the map, and they're kinda hosed. There's not going to be a lot they can do. But this was the game that kind of made me realize that the Hesh shell is pretty good. You know, a lot of times if you find yourself in a flanking position, you want the shell that brings the most pain, because what type of armor are they going to have on the side of their tank? Generally speaking, the side armor is not very good, and the rear armor is not very good. So if you end up on the side of somebody, you just want to bring the pain, and the Hesh shell brings the pain. The big thing about it, in my opinion, is that all those tanks I shot, my first shell essentially made it that they could not fight me for whatever reason, whether it's because they lost their gunner or they're immobilized, something to that effect. They were not going to be able to engage me, which I think is very critical when you have. So this is also awkward. The ZSU, by the way, is still a good tank. It will never cease to not be a good tank. There we go. Nice T10 Hesh shell right into the front of the tank, but that is a ZSU. He is shooting at me. It's going to be a problem. It's always a problem. I mean, it's a ZSU. It's a 50-cell cannon, firing very quickly. It's always going to be a problem. But anyways, let's move on to the next replay, shall we? Alright, so here we are on the next battle. This is another realistic battle in the Chieftain. Now, I did join this battle a tiny bit late, but that's okay. There's one key moment that made me want to show this replay. A lot of this is just going to be me rambling. It always is. But we're going to ramble about the Chieftain. The reason I think... Okay, my thoughts on the Chieftain are very much so... I don't think it's great. There are a lot of people who say this is like the best tank in the universe. And there are other people who say, it's alright. I tend to agree with the people who say, it's alright. And my reasoning is, it's sort of niche. The front of the turret is strong, and the gun is big, and it packs a punch, and it reloads pretty quick, and that's all cool. But does it do the core function I think tanks need to do at the 8.0 battle rating as well as better than the others? And I think the answer is pretty easily no. And the reason is I think flanking is so important, and being in unexpected places and getting the first shot off, which I think is a function of getting somewhere quickly and setting up and being ready for them. I think like the Leopard does that better. So I don't want to say the Chieftain is the best tank at the 8.0 battle rating just because I think there's a key function that another tank does a lot better. However, it is important to know this tank is this tank is no slouch. This tank will beat you upside the head with a very powerful gun. And it's certainly not a bad tank. I think it's no worse than any other tank. I think this is a good tank. There's a mouse over there. There was a mouse over there. That's fun. And also, to me, the Chieftain doesn't bring some of the characteristics of the other tanks. Like, for me, when I did the M60 review, it was a brawler. Primarily because it has a weird armor profile and people just couldn't figure it out. T-54 is a brawler because of all that sloped armor, and it's just weird, and it has, the armor is cloaked in stellinium and has a log. Does it have a log? One of them has a log. And so that's just an automatic win on that, with that. But the T in the tank is not a bad thing. The T sometimes can supercharge and really put down some pain. And the 120mm gun, I would take this gun over most of the others just because of the higher caliber and the fact that when I hit them, they're going to feel it. They're going to feel it a lot. However, you're not immune to things like, by no means are you immune to things. People can very easily penetrate every part of your tank. It's just the gun mantlet's pretty tough. It's not easy. Doable, but not easy. I think and the other thing is that this tank can get trolled where, like, my 120mm shell ricocheted off a Leopard. It's like, okay, yeah, the angle was weird. Yeah, the gun mantlet, whatever. Still, that big a shell hitting that tank, it should rip it apart like paper mache, in my opinion. But that's, that's not how the game works. So that's something else to keep in mind, is that sometimes you can get kind of trolled. I actually have no idea what happened there. Apparently nothing. But really reloading Hesh, because at this range I just want to derp this guy in the face. And really, Hesh is great for Leopards. Leopards should just die. Bye-bye. See? Just hit him, whack him in the face with it, and they die. I think this guy was maybe a little upset at me. Although, I prefer to think I did him a service. And I couldn't repair him, so there you go. Whatever. But yeah, like I said before, I don't think the Chieftain is any type of slouch. I think this is a really good tank, and I think if you're excited about it and you're trying to research it, you know, get more excited, because I think it's a great tank and very fun to play. This is one of the more fun tanks I've played, just because being able to hit things really hard and having a very balanced package was pretty sweet. Now, that being said, I don't have a lot of fun at the 8.0 battle rating anyway, and I think my next target for review, I need a break from the higher tiers. I think my next target for review will be the Dicker Max. I need to unlock it first, or maybe the Tortoise. I don't know. Problem is, it's been a while, so I don't remember which tanks review. I haven't done a Tortoise review, so I might do the Tortoise, and then while I'm doing the Tortoise, try and unlock the Dicker Max, and then do the Nashorn after that. Because Dicker Max looks pretty interesting. Pretty decent 105mm gun. 105mm gun? Something like that. On a chassis that doesn't seem that mobile, but it can bring the pain. So that's pretty sweet. But the rest of this battle I'm just going to drive around. So I'm just going to ramble because, I don't get to ramble as much anymore. I've been a busy guy. So yeah, if you're trying to unlock the Chieftain, go for it. It's sweet. You'll enjoy it. Big fun to be had. However, do be prepared to get one shot a lot. Something I missed, I just realized in the garage portion, was the X-ray. So I'll do my best now. The X-ray of this tank, there's ammo everywhere. That's kind of silly, but at the same time, I guess so. It's a big gun, needs its shells, and not a ton of room to put them in places. So, also, at this tier, just be prepared to get one shot anyway. It happens all the time. I think it happens more so at this tier than at the others. Usually you take a hit and you're disabled, or maybe you lose a track or something like that. In this tier, you take a hit, your tank gets gutted from stem to stern, and you're toast. But hey, that's what happens when the guns get more powerful and armor becomes maybe a little less relevant. In the lower tiers, you kind of say, this tank's got a little more armor. This should be pretty sweet. And even less so now. Many patches ago, armor was a pretty serious concern. But with the introduction of with some of the new tanks and higher penetration rounds and kind of balance changes, armor means a lot less. It never meant a ton in War Thunder. A lot less so than World of Tanks. For example, the T95. T95 is my baby. I love the T95. Someday, I'm going to go to the museum near D.C. Was it Aberdeen? And go see the T95 prototype, because I want to, because it's amazing. It's the best tank ever. It's the best machine ever built, bar none. Even better than the Chieftain and all the other tanks in the world combined. But in War Thunder, it's really, really shitty. And it's 100% due to the fact that things like cupola, if you penetrate the cupola on the T95, which is very easy to do, you can obliterate the tank with like a explosive armor piercing shell. Just blitzes the tank. Heat shells have enough penetration to pen it from the front outright. There's some Sabo shells that have enough penetration to do it. Yeah, it's just, and the gun on it, the 105mm gun, just does not pack the punch you need it to, which is sad, because I loved my T95 in World Tanks. But that's enough nostalgia. I was curious what this T10 was doing. Then I realized he was lining up for... He was trying to make it so he could shoot his gun at that guy. I don't know, he didn't hit him, but got close. But the game's just about over. I'm just going to line up for a shot on my teammate here. Always a fun thing to do. The enemy have one plane. Just line up for a shot on the nearest teammate that you think you can knock out. You can use it as kind of an experimenting point. I was curious, can I one-shot my teammate? This is not an angle you usually find yourself at when facing a T10 in a Chieftain. So this would be nice if I could see what the effectiveness of this shell is. Caused a fire, but did not destroy him. That is sad. But such is life. So let's move on to the final opinion, shall we? So, opinion time. What do I think of the Chieftain Mark III? The I hesitate to say I like the tank. Okay, I'll just say it. I like the Chieftain. I think it's pretty good. The problems I have with it are that I think there are other tanks that are better at some things than this tank. You know, to me, this tank's main attraction is a big meaty gun that shoots really quickly, which is pretty good, right? That's pretty sweet. But I like the Leopard 1 a lot. I like the M60 a lot. Mainly because, well, I like the Leopard 1 a lot because it's so mobile. And the M60 is pretty troll from the front with the same gun. But, you know, this tank has a bigger gun. 120mm gun. It's pretty sweet. Can hit like a house. Can hit like a brick house sometimes. And I think that's really what you use this tank for. And when you can find those good hold down opportunities, you can just lay waste to people, which is pretty sweet. And yeah, and this tank isn't slow, and the armor is good enough in, you know, a frontal engagement. If you can get a little cover up your lower glacis, you should be okay. But is it my favorite? I don't think it's my favorite, but it is good. It's a good tank. It's worth the grind. It's worth researching out this, you know, all the way through the Centurions and all those other tanks and getting here. So that's my thoughts on it. I'm not. I think my thoughts can best be summed up as good. Just good. Good. You know, maybe more than meh, but not great, if that makes sense. Kind of that middle in between. Above average. Let's say above average. Not excellent, not average, above average. Because I don't know. I still think I'd take my I still really like Leopard. I put a bush on the front of it. You like that? The bush thing I think that's kind of silly. I wish the bushes were something you unlock by like playing a tank. You know, you get the ability to, you know, camouflage your tank, kind of like they already have with camouflages. And then these actually work to some degree. Like you don't ever pay money for them. That you just unlock them through the game. But that's aside the point. Basically, I really like this Leopard. It has a reload under a second less, and it's really quick, which is pretty sweet. But you know, the Chieftain can hit really, really hard, and that's what you play it for, to hit things really hard. So anyway, that's my thoughts on the Chieftain Mark III. Hope this review is helpful. Hope maybe you got some insights on ways to take advantage of its strengths, avoid its weaknesses, or if you're trying to kill these things, I hope I helped you figure out how to blast these things away. But anyway, I'm Corny Swiss, and I'll see you next time.